It's Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell.
Welcome, folks, to the program for the first time. I want to introduce you to Mr. Justin A. Torres. He is a D.C.-based attorney, and he is a member of the Federalist Society. He has represented parties in high-stakes civil and criminal matters in the United States Supreme Court, federal courts of appeals, state Supreme Courts. He's been named a rising star by super lawyers in Washington, D.C. Hey, Justin, welcome to the program, sir. Thanks for coming on.
Thanks for having me.
So I want to have you on because I understand you've been following this census question. Is that correct? They're going to add a question on the census as to whether or not, are you a citizen or are you not a citizen?
That's right. They're going to ask a question for everyone who responds to the census. Is this person a U.S. citizen? And if they're a naturalized citizen, what year were they naturalized?
Okay, yeah. Sorry, Justin. We're having just a little bit of trouble hearing you, so if you could just speak right into your microphone, yes, that's much better. The Supreme Court, they're going to hear arguments on this. Is that right? Because of obviously anything that happens at this point, somebody's going to sue somebody, right?
That's right. The court is going to hear arguments in February on a somewhat narrow question about whether the plaintiffs in all of these cases that are challenging the census question can get the deposition of Commerce Secretary Wilbur Ross. And that's actually, it's a really unusual circumstance. Normally in what are called administrative law cases where you're dealing with, what is a federal agency doing, the court relies on the written record of the agency's decision-making process, and there's no depositions or questioning of agency officials or anything like that. But the judge in that New York case said that he thought there was evidence that even though there was an explanation that was given by Commerce Secretary Ross about why he chose to include this question, that he felt there was evidence that that wasn't the real reason, and that there was a hidden racially tinged or racially discriminatory reason. And so he's allowed that deposition to go forward, and the court's going to hear whether or not they've stated, and they're going to hear argument on whether or not they're going to allow that deposition to go forward. But I also expect that just the question generally, like the merits question of whether the Trump administration has the power to add this question to the census is going to be before the court for too much longer.
Mm. So what do you think they're afraid of? I mean, why are people suing? You think it's about the districts and what they might look like if we have an accurate depiction of how many United States citizens we have in our country?
Yeah, the question, the argument that a lot of opponents of adding this question make is that if you ask this question, non-citizens, illegal immigrants in the United States are not going to answer because they're going to fear enforcement. They're going to fear that that's going to reveal their illegal status and they're going to be deported. So they won't answer, therefore they won't be counted in the head count, and therefore they won't be counted for purposes of redrawing the district line. And a lot of people don't realize that in the United States today, congressional district lines are based on total population and not on citizen population. So the non-citizens are being counted for purposes of congressional representation. And that, after the 2010 census, it was estimated that there were something in the neighborhood of about 4 to 8 seats, several of them in California, Texas, and Arizona, that would have shifted to other states if the count had been based solely on citizen population instead of all population.
Wow. So that would mean, obviously, California is a much more blue state, and so we would have maybe a few more. You just would be uncertain. You don't know if it would be a Democrat for Democrat, but if it moved to another state, it's not. California is a very, very, very different place than even the states around it.
Right. Yeah. It's California of that. 5 to 8 probably accounts for 3 to 5 of those seats, and it's estimated one of those seats would probably go to Louisiana, one would probably go to Arkansas, one would probably go to North Carolina. So you're distributing seats in very different parts of the country, and what would the ultimate effect be? Not entirely clear, but certainly there would be some effect. So that's the concern. And then you have concerns. People have concerns about things like federal block granting. and Medicare, Medicaid, things like that are driven by population formulas, and there's the concern that states with high illegal populations are going to lose out if you're not counting illegals.
So I want to kind of park real quick on something you just said. I mean, I know it's speculative, but you're saying, I mean, this is an Arkansas, radio program where we're based in Arkansas. We're on several stations across the state. So you're saying that theoretically, if the number of United States citizens is actually, more, if it were more accurate and we had less illegal immigrants put in that category, that Arkansas might go from 4 congressional seats to 5?
Potentially, based on, it's always hard to say in hindsight because, there's some fairly complicated formulas, but Arkansas and Louisiana were 2 states that a lot of people thought in the 2010 census probably lost out relative to California because of California's significant illegal population kind of juicing the numbers so that there were additional congressional districts.
Wow, that is big news here. Today on the program that is even a possibility because I actually, I knew there was the possibility that you've going to have some districts moving, but I didn't know that there were people that actually thought that Arkansas might be affected by that. That would be huge. So where do we go from here? I mean, do you think? And I haven't followed this as closely as I should. I've got this NPR article, which, by the way, is I really don't ever reference NPR much at all. But do you think this is, gonna, when the census goes out? I mean, there's not been an injunction stopping the question, has there?
Well, there hasn't yet, but that's only because we're still a little bit away from the census. But it is, the plaintiffs certainly are seeking an injunction, and the district court is going to issue an opinion. The district court in New York, which is the case that's furthest along, is probably going to issue an opinion here in the next, I would suspect, 2 to 4 weeks. The trial ended toward the end of November, and the judge said that he was likely to get an opinion out within about a month to 6 weeks. So
okay.
I think we're fairly close to an opinion. At the end of that, what's going to happen? Who knows? I think it is certainly very possible that judge will issue an injunction, at which case you're off to the races in terms of appellate court review in the Second Circuit. And I suspect this case will be heard on a relatively expedited manner up to the Supreme Court because, the Commerce Department and the Census Bureau have to have an answer, and they have to have an answer pretty soon. Census ballots, census forms have to be printed, and they have to be distributed, they have to be tested. So there's, this is not a ship that you can sort of turn on a dime.
Right.
But so I would expect we'll have an answer soon, and probably a definitive answer from the Supreme Court, certainly before the end of this term in June.
Good.
So I think we'll hear this question pretty quickly.
So, question, is this person a citizen of the United States? Yes, born in the United States. Yes, born in Puerto Rico, Guam, the U.S. Virgin Islands, or Northern Marianas. Yes, born abroad, U.S. citizen, parent or parents. Yes, U.S. citizen by naturalization, print year of naturalization. Or no, not a U.S. citizen. So here's my next question, Justin. We're talking with Justin Torres. He's a D.C.-based attorney. If this were to go forward, and let's say that there is a significant amount of illegal immigrants that were counted before, and now we know that they're not being counted, would anybody then compare that to the voter registration rolls, and would it maybe potentially reveal some massive voter fraud going on?
I mean, it's possible, right? One of the things I think that is driving this question is really it's very hard to formulate reasonable policy in the absence of data. And one of the things that's very clear is that there's a U.S. government official estimate of the number of illegal immigrants in the country, which is about 11 to 12 million. Anybody who studies this question on both sides of it, whether you're pro-illegal immigration or not, right, almost everybody agrees that estimate is really way too low. There was a Yale study that came out just a couple of weeks ago using some pretty sophisticated statistical analysis that compared responses to the American Community Survey, which is a yearly survey that comes out from the Census Bureau to a subset of the American population. And it asked this question. It asked the citizenship question. So it compared those results to objective government data like Social Security registration and came up with an estimate of the illegal population that was twice the U.S. government's estimate. So their estimate was about 22 to 23 million. So it's pretty clear that we don't have a very good handle on what this number actually is, and that makes it hard to formulate all kinds of policies. How do you formulate any policy that is based on population if you don't have a really good sense of the population? Mm-hmm. It could have impacts in voter registration, enforcement issues, but all kinds of things. Block granting, as I mentioned, Medicaid, things like that.
Yeah, it goes to the very fundamental, concept of, what's prescribed in the Constitution and how to, get the right amount of representatives so we can govern ourselves. I mean, it's a big deal. It certainly is. And Justin, I just want to thank you for doing the work that you're doing on this and coming on the program and sharing some really valuable information with us about what we can expect. So, Justin Torres, I really appreciate it, sir.
Sure. Thank you much.
All righty.